Welcome along to View from the commentary box, and the commentary box is at Scottish Gas Murrayfield. We've just seen Scotland lose by 20 points to 16 against France. It's France's first win of the championship, Scotland's first loss in the championship. I've got Grahame MacGregor from BBC Radio Scotland, also Stuart McFarlane, who called it for the same company, and we've got Purdie from Borders Rugby TV as well. We'll start with you, Stuart. Almost identical ending to last week in Wales, with the TMO deciding whether it was going to be a try or not.
Well, ultimately the referee, Nick Berry, made the final decision, but I think Nick Berry was seesawing his way through the entire contest, and Brian McNeice was suggesting he could reverse his on-field decision, which originally was the ball was held up. There seemed to be an image that suggested the ball had come off a foot. Sam Skinner had cleanly grounded the ball, but Brian McNeice can't necessarily come out and say you've got this wrong, but he was trying to direct Nick Berry into making the correct decision. By the 3.5, near 4 minutes of reviews on the big screen and the access we had to pictures, it appears it was the wrong decision, and Scotland, as you say, like last weekend, were across the whitewashed opposition, whitewashed right at the very end. On that occasion, Van der Merwe's try wasn't given. On this occasion, Sam Skinner is very unlucky not to have an international try, and you know that's going to be the talking point of the game. But we've seen it before. It's happened to Scotland in a World Cup quarter-final, where the last minute of a game is the talking point for many a week and many a month following.
And Purdie, the body language of the French, their arms were in the air, a lot of kidology going on, of course, but Scotland didn't look that sort of convincing themselves.
I'm not sure how, because from where I was sat, it looked to try all day long. I echo what Stuart said there. I think that's an abysmal bit of refereeing, if I'm being completely honest. He was absolutely right to call it as, you know, the on-field decision, no try, but it was clear for all to see that the ball had been grounded. So, but, you know, others might argue that the game should have been put to bed earlier than that. I thought France have, robbed Murrayfield here. They've escaped with the one, but Scotland potentially, should have the game put to bed. That run up to half time, they were a man to the good. They had all kinds of pressure, and it's hard to see an Ireland or a South Africa not capitalising at that moment. But yeah, that's it's just a very Scottish outcome, dare I say.
Yeah, Grahame MacGregor, we've been here before, haven't we?
I was just going to say a very Scottish outcome indeed. I've seen that many times before, I'm afraid to say. And we're just that bit flaky at the wrong times, really, Scotland. I mean, we should have put that game away. We were really on top at times, and France just would come back in again. And that try they scored, of course, ultimately was the one which made it. But I agree, it looked like a try. It was very difficult to see in all the melee, but they had enough replays and so on. And we certainly agree that it wasn't a try at the end of last week's game by Van der Merwe, but that looked like a dramatic try for Scotland, which would have given them the game, but it was not to be. And it'll be interesting to see what the discussions are after this.
Of course, right at the beginning, Kyle Steyn not taking part because his wife went into labour.
Yeah, that was the news that broke just after lunchtime, and enter Harry Patterson, 8-9 Edinburgh appearances, and he walked onto the pitch. He looked quite assured in the warm-up, and he acquitted himself very well indeed. He might look back and be a little bit disappointed by what became of the winning French try. Ben White seemed to be penalised earlier in the move, and it left maybe Patterson a little bit too much work to do, given his starting position as defensive cover. But really, you have to say that as a debut performance on an otherwise forgettable afternoon, with the last play effectively being the only play that's really going to be talked about in this tie, I think he acquitted himself very well, and he will go back to the Scotland camp after this break and 2 weeks before we play England. I think he'll be a very satisfied man. I think a very frustrated man will be Gregor Townsend, who's very measured and controlled in his comments when he addresses the media, but the actions of the referee, not just at the end but for the entire game, I think will certainly test the patience and the composure of the Scotland coach, and understandably so.
Well, Robin, were you surprised that maybe they didn't shuffle the back round a bit, bring in Cameron Redpath at centre, Hugh Jones at fullback rather than parachute a complete unknown really to many people into the side.
Yeah, I think there was that option, Stuart, and Hugh Jones has played a bit of rugby this season in the 15 jersey, and Cam Redpath's a high quality operator at Bath and for the national team, so there was definitely that option. But yeah, young Patterson, there was a few eyebrows raised in the media room at lunchtime, absolutely. But like Stuart, I thought he acquitted himself brilliantly. He had some early touches that enabled him to grow into the game, and he played a big part in that first try. And I thought he just grew from there. And I think he can be very happy with his afternoon's work.
He has been around the feeder system a long time. He was an under 24 years ago. He was part of the Scotland Sevens back in 2022, and I think his mentality and his composure are very important. I think he's enjoying life under the new Edinburgh coach as well. I'm sure he would have blossomed if the previous Edinburgh coach had still been in charge. But I think because he'd been around the Scotland age grade setup, and he can fill three positions in the backs very nicely indeed, he seemed to maybe be a better fit than unsettling a partnership like Tuipulotu and Jones in the middle.
Well, Grahame MacGregor, certainly Harry Patterson definitely put his best performance in today. Ben White, let's mention him because he actually went over the try line I think 3 times. The first time in 7 minutes was the decisive one, and he scored a try for Scotland, and that set up Scotland beautifully.
Yeah, he had a great going, excellent. And I mean, going just I don't know if Harry Patterson will be smiling. I don't think many of the Scottish team will be smiling at the moment. But yeah, I mean, there were some great performances there, and Finn Russell had some wonderful poised moments and 1 or 2 wee mistakes as well. But I've been coming here for so many years, as you know, and I've felt pretty bad at the end of a game. But I've never been in a situation where, with the clock red, a decision made by several people was going to cause either one side or the other. It was like that, go absolutely ballistic, and of course it fell to France. And it will be talked about, but a very Scottish ending, my goodness me.
Finn Russell, then let's talk about him, because as captain now he's the one who basically calls the shots, and he decided to go for the points early on, which I think was a very good decision. But 5 minutes towards the end, when Scotland were camped in the French 5 metre area, they were yellow carded as well. They did bring in another forward, so it was still 8 against 8 in the scrum.
This at the end of the first half when Antonio was yellow carded. Yeah, you look back on that and you do think there were opportunities there. I think he felt because they were so close to the line, because Antonio's absence, if there were ever going to be an opportunity to land a second score, it was then and now, and it should have been. And again, to touch on points that the other guys have made, I think if that had been an Ireland or a South Africa, given the starting position was central, there were 7 points on the board, and Scotland were unable to finish it. And I think that would probably be an instruction as well that would come from the coaching staff. It's how many times you're allowed to repeat the process by reset scrums, advantages played, back for another penalty before, as you say, Stuart, you have to say, right, we're going to go for the 3 points, we're going to take a 16-10 lead into the interval rather than 13-10, because the game could hinge on such fine margins. And lo and behold, that's exactly what's happened.
And Robin, how did you view that last 5 minutes of the first half?
Oh, just again what Stuart said, and we were speaking about it as we were watching it, you could almost tell what was going to happen. I'm always an advocate of taking your points, but it seems to have gone out of fashion, and they were a man to the good, so there was logic in going for the scrum. Then they were penalised at the scrum, and it has a different complexion going down the half-time tunnel at 16 points to 10. But yeah, they should have capitalised there. There should have been minimally 3 points, but there probably should have been 7 in all honesty.
And the first try for France, acres and acres of space appeared for him.
Yes, indeed. When it happened for France, it certainly happened, and it was a day for them. All the things seemed to go well. I mean, Scotland were at times looking really good there, but at other times, I say, we just don't have that killer instinct and maybe the right decisions. And we've just been talking about the end of the. It's easy to say now, of course, the end of the first half about the decision not to kick the goals, but. You never know what's going to lie ahead, and maybe in those circumstances, a game like that today, it looked like it took the pattern of a close game, and it might have been the best idea. But look, that's really all past now, and what's happened has happened, and we go on to the next match.
Stuart, set pieces, of course, in the line-out in particular. I mean, 11 wins out of 11 up to half-time, whereas France lost 2 of their 3 line-outs. I felt the scrum was better for Scotland as well. It was quite solid. We didn't get pushed back at all.
Yeah, the French line-out was very patchy. Scotland line-out was, in the first half, as you say, 10 from 10, 11 from 11. It was maybe a little bit more ragged in the second half, but it was a much more assured performance from George Turner during the course of the 80 minutes, for most of that 80 minutes. And that's always going to be the platform for you to build something. The illustration was they were not ruthless enough from a scrum 5 metres from the opposition line at the end of the first half. Maybe it's an admission of defeat, taking 3 points from the line out. Again, they had maybe 1 or 2 attacking maul opportunities, but not a great deal, and it results in limited opportunities to break down a French side that were doing everything to disrupt the rhythm and flow of the game for much of the contest, because I think they realised early on they were maybe not going to be on the money today, and it was going to be a bit of an arm wrestle with the Scots to see who was going to come out and win.
This was a game that Scotland should really have won.
Oh, 100%. Scotland should have won that game. There's absolutely no two ways about it, and it's very much the one that got away. Yeah, France look a shadow of their recent selves at the moment, don't they? I mean, some of their big forwards have just come out the door behind us, and they are gigantic when you see them up close. But Scotland weren't bullied today. So I thought Scotland's discipline as well was excellent. By my count, they only gave away 6 or 7 penalties, which, by any stretch is a good return in that department, and certainly compared to the 17 in quick succession they gave away last week. So, Scotland decent in patches, but France no great shakes today, and it's got a different complexion now for us. We win that today, and we're looking at England at home, and we're looking at Italy away, and we're doing that Scottish thing, and we're starting to talk about Grand Slam deciders in Dublin, but it's not going to be.
Just bringing back Stuart for a couple of trivial points here, and trivia points at the same time as well. Scotland playing in their oil blue today, and France in white. Why was that? It's normally the home team that changes.
I was going to ask you. I was going
No one seems to know.
I was going to ask you, and I had a look through the programme just to see if there was any specific detail about that. But and that's been the case for decades, that France would come out in blue and Scotland would come out in white. So that still remains a mystery at the moment, I must admit.
I'm sure in the comment section someone will let us know about that one. But of course, on another trivia point, Grahame, 103 years since we last had 2 Scottish games in a row without any borderers in.
Yeah, there's a piece of trivia not many people actually know at this particular moment. I think you're right. Do you think that made all the difference? Maybe that was the story of the game, actually, in fact. Just going back to the game there, the way that France reacted at the end, it looked like they were almost surprised to win, and really more than pleased than you would have imagined, because probably within themselves they felt that they were lucky, not just in the try at the end, but in the overall game, that they came here knowing they had to win after last week, and obviously they did, but they managed it by skin of their teeth kind of style, and it's such a disappointment. I mean, it's such a feeling of feeling down after an ending like that. It's difficult to get over, but we'll have to, and that's the way it is. We're Scottish.
2 weeks' time, we're back here again, and it's Scotland against England, the Calcutta Cup, and we're doing pretty well against England normally. What about 2 weeks' time? What's going to happen?
I think there'll be a reaction from the Scots, whether it's an 80-minute reaction, a 60-minute reaction, a 20-minute reaction. You don't necessarily know. It's so difficult to try and gauge what's going to happen next, because last week in Cardiff one team left the park full of relief. This week at Murrayfield another team's left the park full of relief because of what has happened in the closing stages of a game, where they thought an opportunity to win was going to be torn from their grasp. So it's very difficult to tell. I would imagine, going back to a point you made to Grahame, that if Darcy Grahame is fit, he will feature somewhere in the 23. But I think what we have seen in the last 7 days or so is a perfect illustration of not just the Scottish diaspora, but how Scottish rugby casts their eye around the world and picks ready-made players using all the rules that are available to them. Who'd have thought going into the World Cup that we'd be talking at the start of the Six Nations about Alec Hepburn, 6 times winning caps for England in 2018, coming off the bench to be a Scottish player in Cardiff, and to make his home debut for Scotland against France. But these are the rules. So, you know, borders players, however they go about trying to become professionals, are up against a lot of ready-made players from around the world that are eligible and could be parachuted right in. And, you know, you've got to look at Van der Vaart, the Edinburgh fly half, one cap, never to be seen again. You know, and so there's some that can come in as short-term fixes and others become long-term projects. So I think the competition and the way in which you go about getting an international cap, if you're a borderer at the moment, is probably harder than it's ever been.
And Robin, you'd certainly agree with that, and looking forward to the England game in a couple of weeks' time back here. I suppose you share all our thoughts that you know, there's great potential in the Scottish team, but they still haven't got that killer instinct.
That's what it is. It's just that killer instinct, and yeah, looking forward to the England game and then the Italy game thereafter. They're absolutely two winnable games. While of course we don't, as Scotland, have a divine right to beat anybody, but that's the disappointing thing about today. Though we get that one over the line, and then we're looking forward to those games and maybe, you know, the game after that. But here we are. You know, it is what it is, for want of a less of a cliche, but can we win the next two games if we perform like that and just have that wee bit more of a killer edge? Absolutely we can.
Well, finally to Grahame, MacGregor, and the Grand Slam's gone again, but there's still the Triple Crown.
Yet again, quite. There's always something there to look forward to if possible. So disappointing. I mean, England, yeah, well, when the game starts in 2 weeks' time, we'll have pretty well forgotten about today probably, and it'll be all about beating England that day. And I think really the chances, I would put my money on England. I put my money strangely on France today, which is a thing I rarely would do ahead of a match. But no, it's going to be an interesting match, and we can only do what we can do. We've got England and then Ireland, of course, as well as Italy after that. It's going to be another mixed season, it would appear.
So it's disappointment all round here then. It finished Scotland 16, France 20. My thanks to Grahame MacGregor, to Robin Purdie and to Stuart McFarlane, and we'll be back with another view from the commentary box in 2 weeks' time.